Now, today I'm going to respond to one of our YouTube viewers' questions because it's a question about how to handle a toxic working environment. Now, it's a really great question because from time to time, any of us might find ourselves in a situation where the environment in which we're operating isn't the best. And it can have a massive impact on our productivity, our motivation, and really importantly, our happiness. So let's start by talking about what we mean by a toxic environment. Now, a toxic working environment is one where negative behaviours like excessive criticism, acts of favouritism, high levels of hostility have just become commonplace. And the interesting thing is that workplaces don't become toxic overnight. It's usually a creeping change that builds up over time. And sometimes the change is so gradual you don't actually notice it the moment when things have shifted. And it's often down to a combination of factors that shift a healthy culture to a toxic one. So when it comes to getting all back on track, it can mean lots of changes are needed. Now, as an employee, your first port of call should always be your manager. Now, that assumes that they are the cause of the toxic culture. And if they are, then you need to turn to somebody else who is empowered to help. And you need to have an open and honest conversation with them. If they really care about the business, they will listen to you. And you'll be amazed at how supportive they can be. Now, in addition to reaching out for support, there's also things that you can do as an individual. So firstly, speak up in front of your colleagues, right? If you think that someone is being unkind, unfair, unreasonable, say so. I know it's going to feel quite hard for some people, but trust me on this, if you speak up, people will listen. Now, if your words come from a place of honesty and good intent, it's really difficult to ignore, and you'll be amazed at the reaction that you might get. Sometimes it can be a real wake-up call for people around you that were slipping into the toxicity, but maybe might now reconsider their own behaviours a bit more. Secondly, get some buy-in, right? The chances are that if you are feeling the toxicity, then other people are going to be too. So build some support, talk about what needs to change and what it will look like when things change, because by focusing on the future, you and those around you are going to feel energized. It's like saying, hey, we know everything isn't perfect right now, but we're working on it. And if we do, we can get it to a really good place. Now, thirdly, be consistent, be relentless, and you've got to walk the talk. So if you've spoken up, you need to make sure it's not a one-off. Be the one that builds up a reputation for fairness, honesty, and kindness, right? The truth is, where you lead, others will follow, and the tide of the toxicity will begin to turn. And always remember, even as an individual employee trying to change a toxic culture, it's important to recognise the difference that you can make. Don't underestimate your potential for positive change. So we've talked a bit about what you can do as an employee. Now, what about if you're the boss, right? Now, step one, it's really important to acknowledge that as the boss, the business culture is toxic, right? If the boss doesn't think that the culture is toxic, then maybe it's the boss themselves that's the cause of the toxicity, okay? Now, secondly, the boss needs to communicate that the culture needs to change. This is a really critical part of the process. You've got to let everybody know the toxicity has become a limiting factor and everybody needs to play a part in changing it. Now, how that message is communicated is also really, really important. If you stand up in front of your staff and say, company's got a toxic culture and I intend to sort that out, some people might not understand what the phrase toxic culture even means. And for others, it might feel like a direct assault on them. So in short, that sort of tact isn't going to work. Go back to the basis of talking about what the company does. Explain the foundations of the company and what they're based on. Talk about why these qualities are so important and how at times they can feel diluted or challenged. Now, this approach not only makes the conversation feel more positive for the staff, but it also reminds everyone of what the company stands for, its mission, its vision for the future, all of which are going to be really important as you move forward. Now, as the boss, be honest with yourself about the current team, right? Sometimes toxic culture can be based on just a handful of staff or even one individual that's having a negative influence. Now, in these cases, you can be really swimming against the tide and you'll need to think seriously about removing that person or people from the situation. Might sound like a huge step to take, but the health of the business is the most important thing. And sometimes changes in staff, no matter how difficult they will be absolutely necessary. So Step 4, keep everyone engaged in the change. Changing a toxic culture into a positive one can be like trying to change a 10-foot tanker. So be aware that over time, energy levels can dip. People need to have that energy topped up. So giving them examples of wins and signs that things are changing for the better. Step 5, recognize and reward examples of positive culture. Share stories across the business and the initiatives that are really changing things. Now, hope you found this useful, and remember, if you've ever got a question or you're wanting some specific advice related to a business, if you're a small business owner, you need some advice on how you're growing your business, come and ask us. The whole idea is this is a community. I'm here to support you and everybody else like you. So if there's something you're struggling with on your business, don't be frightened to come and ask me. And you never know, could be the subject of one of the next 6-minute entrepreneur discussions.